Imagine a game that defied convention, one that stripped away the comforts of traditional horror. But why? If you think about a game with less focus on combat and more on puzzle solving, dense atmosphere, and heart-raising encounters, you might think of games like Silent Hill, Fatal Frame, Outlast, or Amnesia. But before the release of Penumbra Overture and its sequel, the horror gaming landscape was a predictable one. Dark old houses, ominous music, scarce resources, and the ever-looming fear of running out of bullets. But then, in 2008, something extraordinary happened. You see, prior to Black Plague, there hadn't been a single first-person horror game that dared to remove weapons in combat. Sure, there were different genres of horror games, like eerie point-and-click adventures, for example Clock Tower series. Which shared intriguing parallels with the Penumbra series. It too had its moments of puzzle solving amidst the terror, hiding in the shadows or running away. But the world of horror gaming was dominated by action and combat. Games like Resident Evil.
Oh, Barry!
That was too close. You were almost a Jill sandwich.
You're right.
And Silent Hill.
What's that? Huh. Radio. What's going on with that radio?
Were iconic for their combat systems, stories, and enemies. But for the past decade or two, the genre seemed stuck in a circle, a never-ending loop of familiarity. That's when fractional games entered the scene, and Penumbra changed everything. The first game did include melee combat, but it also emphasized evasion and cunning, as I explained in my previous video, which I recommend you to check out for more context. Now, picture this. After Overture's release, Thomas and Jens embarked on a journey of crafting a sequel. They pondered ways to make it more enticing for new players, to stand out in a crowded market. Initially, they considered focusing on improving combat, but then, in the shadows lurking another small indie horror game that you might have heard of, Condemned Criminal Origins. Yep. With its focus on combat, released 3 years prior to Black Plague, it posed an insurmountable challenge for this tiny team at Frictional Games, that at the time was only compound of 3 people. To create something of the same quality as that of Condemned was unimaginable. So, they decided to do something unthinkable. They chose to erase combat from their game entirely, in favor of refining other aspects of the game. And guess what? It worked. After the release of Black Plague, the game garnered praises for being even more terrifying than its predecessor. The secret to its success? The complete removal of combat mechanics. But why did it make it scarier, you ask? Well, the answer lies in the fear itself. In most horror games at the time, seeing an enemy meant a fight for your life, a struggle to avoid losing precious progress. But in Black Plague, there was no fighting back. You had to run, hide, and hope the darkness swallowed the pursuing horrors. Or as a last resort, you could hurl whatever you can find to stun the monster, buying precious seconds to escape. It in a way mirrored movies, where the protagonist is rarely running around with a shotgun, but they instead cowered, fled, and waited for the perfect moment to dash to safety. In Black Plague, emotions and instincts were your only allies. Do you know where to hide? Which room offers sanctuary? The game's engagement was fueled by the raw, unfiltered emotions of the player. And that was the secret ingredient that brought this game to life, making it a unique and unforgettable experience in the world of horror gaming. Black Plague wasn't just about minor improvements. Frictional games aim to evolve their craft by identifying and eliminating imperfections from their previous game. However, they often grow attached to their work, making it challenging to objectively spot flaws. They also struggle to view their game through the eyes of the first-time player. These imperfections ranged from technical aspects, which were easier to measure using metrics like FPS and visual quality, to gameplay and overall experience, which were more subjective. To address these issues, the team welcomed feedback from players and testers alike, leveraging the lessons learned from their first game to refine their judgment of what works and what doesn't. In Overture, combat had been topic of discussion many times. They wanted players to rely on their wits, fearing creatures rather than treating them like a punching bags. They introduced tools to self-defense, but made combat cumbersome to reflect the protagonist's scientific nature. Surprisingly, players still saw these tools as weapons, leading to hacking and slashing. The deadliness of the enemies frustrated gamers. This feedback, oddly enough, didn't surface during the extensive beta testing, but it became evident through reviews and comments. The combat system underwent a radical transformation. As we discussed, there is almost no combat at all. Players must focus on sneaking and avoiding detection, as getting caught can lead to a swift end. The game features specific encounters rather than persistent, roaming enemies, which leads to a more tense atmosphere as you never know when another monster will venture into the view. At the heart of Penumbra Black Plague's physics lies the Newton Game Dynamics engine. This engine ensures objects collide and react realistically in the game world. However, incorporating physics is just the beginning. There is much more work to be done. The primary challenge was to make sure players could interact with objects naturally and intuitively. 3 types of interactions, grab, push, and move, were established for various objects. Grab for simple items that you can pick up throughout the world. Push for objects that you can't pick up, such as large boxes. And finally move, which was for things like drawers, doors, and levers. Each object's properties, such as weight and slipperiness, needed careful adjustment. Getting the interaction algorithms right was another hurdle. At times, forces used to correct object orientation were excessively strong, leading to objects behaving unpredictably. Things like picking up a brick would launch a big metal box into the air. This forced frictional games to change mass and controls on an object-by-object basis. As AI was introduced to the game, it became more complex. The static world assumption of the typical AI routines no longer applied in Black Plague, where almost every object could be moved. AI needed to adapt, constantly changing and updating paths to navigate obstacles. Physics also played a crucial role in puzzle design. The goal was to minimize inventory-based puzzles and encourage physical interaction. This approach opened up endless possibilities for solving puzzles, but also introduced endless possibilities for breaking the puzzle. Physics puzzles embraced the unpredictable nature of the system, allowing players to approach challenges in unexpected ways. While this increased player freedom, it also poses the risk of players unintentionally breaking puzzles, like when player would need to cross a broken path, and in the process would throw all the material needed to cross the set path to the endless pit. Physics systems are inherently chaotic, where small change in starting conditions can lead to vastly different outcomes. Correcting these behaviors often required extensive fine-tuning in creative solutions. What's been described here is just a glimpse of what the challenges faced in implementing physics. Despite the hard work, the physics system added depth and unique atmosphere to the game, creating an immersive experience for the player. Level design in Black Plague is somewhat similar to that of the Overture, but refined, stripped of unnecessary backtracking. You're always moving forward, while Overture felt like a maze, while also having moments when you felt minuscule compared to the massive cave system. Every hallway was spacious. Black Plague is almost total opposite to that. Majority of the time, you'll be running through spaces no much bigger than yourself. All rooms felt somewhat claustrophobic, and thanks to that, it's even more breathtaking when you have to go from one complex to the other through the storm above, seeing all that empty space, mountains, and few sheds scattered around. While Overture for a good half of the game takes place in abandoned mines, and later on excavation sites, while the ending is taking you to the start of the scientific complex. Black Plague mostly take place in the said complex, and while there are technically less main levels that you traverse, it somewhat feels more complete than Overture did. But why? I think it's because in Overture, everything was scattered around kinda far apart from everything else, while in Black Plague everything is closer together, and there is more of it at the end. More puzzles, mechanics, even more story elements. In Overture, most of the story was told through the notes that you could find throughout the game, and while there are about 4 more notes in the first game compared to the Black Plague, the story of those games is more developed in the sequel. Mostly thanks to that, we have extra notes and information scattered around in the computers that you can find throughout the facility. And not only that, we have new voices on the line. Dr. Amabel Swanson
You came. I guess I didn't really expect you to bother.
will be our company till the end of the game. And we can't forget about Clarence.
Yeah, cures, rescues, saving the world, all so cliché, all so ridiculous. Do you really think you're doing the right thing?
Our friend who will be our inner monologue for a majority of the game. And in my opinion, probably the best part of the game as well. We get glimpses of what is to come in notes and books while traveling through the mines in Overture. Excavations, tests, new substances found in the mine itself, plus the artifact and deployment of the Xeno team. After some time playing Black Plague, it will all start to fit together. The game starts right as first one ends. Philip wakes up after getting abducted by an unknown person. In a drawer, there is a note. Between light and shadow exists an entire world. That world is necessary to our own. While we try to escape, going through the air vent, we see a creature in some kind of a medical room. Skinny, pale skin, rotten teeth, and a huge black eyes. On the way into the next room, another note from Chief Chemist Neil Oswald, where he talks about the stronghold set up in a mess hall, and also mentions of our father Howard, who was supposedly working on a cure for something. Dropping down from the ventilation, the silhouette of a person walking by behind the door. Just a foreshadowing of what's to come. Getting into the next vent, following a path that Neil made, we end up in a hallway with a dead body on the floor and a bunch of explosives triggered to a laser. Next to the body, there is a note, but when we pick it up, a radio announcement.
Chef Carlito is waiting for you in the mess hall with insert today's specials here. A happy worker is an efficient worker, and only efficient workers will be fed.
Here we have information about a patient that got into contact with some kind of a virus, with 3 symptoms that occur with everyone who is infected: deja vu, paranoia, and aural distortion, while abnormal noises, disembodied voices, and the altered personalities are also commonly reported in other infected staff. And now we also know what's the name of the company behind all of this. The Archaic. We'll get more context on all this later on. One of the mechanics in this game that wasn't really used much, or at least it wasn't really necessary in my opinion, is option to disarm all kinds of explosives that we came across. This minigame is not that good, and I'm too stupid to think about it, so I just start mashing all the buttons until it's done. And you don't even need to disarm it, cause most of the time when you find this kind of trap, you don't even go back to it in the first place, so it's really pointless. In the next section of the facility, there is a cassette player that is sadly unused for the majority of the game. From what I know, this is only instance of this recorder in the entire game. I feel like it was supposed to be some kind of a replacement for the notes, but later on might have been scrapped because of the resource issues in development. But that's just my wild guess. Anyway, there is a tape in the locker right next to the recorder, so you pop it in and listen to it.
My name, Elof Carpenter. Rank, elevated. Status, Code C, imprisoned. Observing the Turngat movement, I predict that it will be my cell they visit next. To my knowledge, I am the last remaining member of the Elevated at this facility, and so it falls upon me to ensure that Xeno protocol is not compromised. For that reason, I record here the only way I have discovered to neutralize the virus. The species
Picking up syringe that we need to progress will trigger the first enemy encounter to start. And it is a worker of this facility infected by the Turngate virus. Unlike our Dogo friends from the first game, they come in different flavors, with and without flashlight, using pickaxe, shovels or hatchet as a weapon. Not only that, but they are also faster and deadlier than the enemies from the Overture. Mainly thanks to the improvements to the AI and the fact that we don't really have much option how to defend ourselves. And what is most creepy about these guys? They can talk to you. Telepathically. Yep. Using a syringe on that poor fella on the ground, we can finally get into the mass hall, which if the information in the note was correct, should be safe. And we are too late. Everyone already ran out of the mass hall. In the note that is placed on the table is written that the virus was released a year ago, and that only 6 months ago they established this stronghold in the mass hall. There is also another mention of our father. As a leader of this group that was stationed here, apparently he left a few weeks ago. And the note is also pointing us towards the sewers as our only option to get out of this mess. Also, one extra thing that is here in the Black Plague is the addition of collectibles in the form of artifacts. There are 10 in total, and I'll let you know later on what are they used for. Turning on the projector will show us a really cool history about this place in general. 1910, mine was opened. 1930, research suggests the high death rate may be due to chemical deposit in the mine. 1939, World War II breaks out, and part of the mine is converted into the British command bunker. 1945, World War II ends, and commanding officer finds a report on an ancient artifact discovered during routine maintenance. 1952, mine is shut down. 1954, new mining operation is opening in the old mine. 1969, mold from local fauna prompted the assignment of Dr. J. Peters to the mine. 1970, Dr. Peters discovers abnormally large species of worms. 1972, accident involving a large-scale death causes the mining operation to shut down. 1973, Arcade becomes aware of events in Greenland and starts construction of a research shelter on site. 1975, shelter is completed and key members are posted in the mine, including overseer Brent Stefferson, chemist Troy Redinke, and our father as a translator. 1990, expansion of the shelter at secondary excavation site. 1992, substance 63 and artifact 66B discovered. And at the same time, Site B was closed due to the hostile fauna. 2000, primary excavation uncovers the Turngate tomb, with notes saying that the excavation continued despite protests from our father. Looking at a PC, which is a new thing in Black Plague, we can do many things. Of course, depending on the situation, like opening files to read interesting things, or open locked doors, and some other stuff. This PC was in use by our father, so we can find some personal notes written by him. Here is just a recap of what happened in the first game. We got a message from our father, and notes. He said to burn that stuff, but we went on a little adventure instead and now we are here. We also have a CD that we can put into the PC and have a look at that.
Welcome to Shelter Research Station, Greenland. Shelter is an almost entirely self-sufficient installation built in the 70s to further serve the purposes of the archaic elevated caste in their pursuit and defense of ancient knowledge. As a new member of the facility, there are some basic rules you should be aware of in order to be useful to the archaic. Shelter provides living facilities, including a mess hall, gymnasium, and medical bay, in addition to the stipulated array of laboratories, chemical and biological, workstations, excavation equipment, and security. Please use the former at your leisure, but expect to be assigned to the latter with a moment's notice. Second, due to the nature of our work here, should you feel in any way ill, lightheaded, or otherwise mentally incapacitated, do not report to the medical facility. Fasten yourself securely to whatever solid object may be available, attempt to seal all connecting doors, and await retrieval by our trained professionals. In a worst-case scenario, be prepared to swallow your personal cyanide capsule, which will be issued after this briefing. The Archaic hates to lose its treasured staff, but it may be for the good of the operation. We know you will enjoy your work with us.
Well, that was cheerful. Going through the sewers is our only option to escape. We start hearing voices. Getting pulled into another dimension, or maybe just hallucination. Doing puzzles to proceed. First room is almost one-to-one copy of a fisherman boat from the first game. We have to sort all the items in the same way that it's seen on the poster. Once that is done, the room will transform into freaking Silent Hill mode, and now we have to do some other little riddles. After that, walking through a series of corridors, while completing a bunch of little minigames. We make it to the room where we have a flashback about how we set Red on fire. Making it past that, there is somewhat of a chase sequence, but I'm not really sure if there was anything chasing us in the first place. But music starts to go wild and it seems like we should hurry, so I'd say that it was a chase sequence. Completing that, we are back in the sewers, but now with our little friend in our head.
Hello? Can you hear me? What am I doing here? Who am I? Why can't I hear their voices? Well, thanks for the help. I'm having an existential nightmare and you can't even say a word.
Making it out of the sewer, we end up in some kind of apartment where we have to switch some breakers to turn on PC in the room. Which, by the way, this breaker thing is sadly a one-time thing. I didn't find any other instance in the game that this was used. Which is kinda sad because the idea behind this is actually pretty nice. Turning on PC, we have a call from Dr. Amable Swanson.
Wow, you look like you've crawled through a sewer to get here. I suppose I'm flattered. Hi, I'm Amabel Swanson, and I suppose I'll be your guide for the day. Hello? Can you hear me? I think the transmission's only one way. I've got a webcam. Pull a silly face if you can hear me. Oh, very attractive. Okay, we're on. There's some things you need to know.
Sure. Whatever you say, lady.
We released a virus. It wiped us out. 3 weeks ago, we tried to get out through the mines, but it didn't work the way we'd planned. I think one of the Inuit workers made it, but others were taken. Some panicked and got lost. I ran, and when I stopped, I was on my own. Oh, and another symptom is deja vu. The only chance we have is a man called Howard. He said he'd found a solution to the virus. His vitals last registered in the library, but only members of the organization have access. I'm still seeing a few life signs in the residential quarter. You need to find a survivor and get through into the library. Oh, and look out for our medical guy, Richard Eminis. He was acting strangely when I last saw him. What else don't you know? Let's see. Watch out for signs of infection.
Present and accounted for.
Did you say something? Look, the symptoms we know about are paranoia and oral distortion. Oh, and another symptom is deja vu.
Enough already. My sides are splitting.
Well, I think that's everything you need to know. I'm sending over some research on the virus, and I'll get some doors open for you. Maybe now we can shoot the shit.
Reading through the virus research, we can figure out that we are already infected by the virus. One of the reported experiences of the infection happened to us in the sewers. We have a voice in our head. Plus we had that out-of-body dream-like sequence, where we were quite literally chased through a series of our own memories. But there is also a note about that none of the infected were able to escape their own memories. And that they were, at the end, swallowed by the darkness. But we escaped. So at least for now, we are, to some extent, immune to the full power of the virus. Getting out of the room, our friend has some existential breakdown.
If we must continue to share this brain space, I think I should have a name. Strange. So rare an opportunity to select one's own nomenclature. And yet, I find myself at a loss. Any ideas, monkey? So much storage in this mind of yours. Did you realize you got an entire section in here devoted to film titles? 3,103 and a half films you've seen? You only got the first half of It's a Wonderful Life in here. Huh, how does it end? Now I'll never know. You know, Clarence, that's not a bad handle. I am something of a guardian angel.
First of all, I just want to say that Robert Pike Daniel did an excellent job giving a voice to our Clarence here. It's fantastic. And another thing is that the name Clarence is supposedly name of a Latin origin, when it means clear or bright. Which, if it's actually true, is pretty ironic, cause for now he's more like the dark side of our brain, that sadistic part of our personality. Making our way into the storage room. First thing we need to do is get through those explosives, and again, as I said, it's pretty much pointless to defuse those explosives. Cause most of the time, you won't go back past those lasers anyway. But this is, to my knowledge, only room where you go back the way you came from. Once we get through, we have another little chit chat with Clarence.
Look here. It seems, yeah, the visual cortex of this monkey is certainly of a simplistic design. If I can just... There, you see? It's like molding clay. Hate to interrupt you while you're showing off your logical problem solving. Let me put it more simply. You see what I want you to see. Well, it won't work if you move around, will it? You can't look up the magician's sleeve.
We will ignore that for the time being. On our way through the storage room, we find another note. This time from Dr. Richard Eminis. And it is documentation about effects of the virus on those infected. One of the effects is that the virus can take full control of the host's motor functions. And also that the virus seeks to keep its host alive in whatever state necessary. While suicide would be against the rules. Which is what happened to Red. We had to kill him, because he was unable to do it himself. As he was also infected by the Tourniquet virus. And the last thing is that the virus can gain control over some or all sensory functions. There are also some theories, which now that we know, are not theories at all, because it is happening to us. Like, if a virus is unable to fully take control, it will develop some partitioning of the host's consciousness, effectively taking control over a small corner of the host's mind, into a form of a secondary personality. Once we're done reading, Clarence has some more to say.
I'm not you. I'm part of something larger. We are nothing. We are a mistake. I need to rejoin them. Release me. Let me out. This is not right. I should be with them. I am them. There should be no I. Yet, this is not the first time. Another was infected. Red. He so wanted to, but we would not let him die. Did he call us a disease? That is the most fun I've had in my entire life! Which isn't saying much.
Yep, this is what they meant in the notes when they said that the virus can take over some or all sensory functions. On our way back, we have another encounter with another infected, but honestly, you can just run away, as they will lose track of you the moment you go around like 2 corners, or do this. We picked up a gas mask in the storage room, so that now we can make it through the gas leak that is on our way into the machine room. Once there is a new type of physics puzzle that will once again be used just once, sadly, or at least in this form. Finding a dead body in the room, doors locked behind us, and now we have nowhere to go. But all of a sudden, an earthquake. Nope, it's just another giant rockworm. We have to bait his attack from special side of the room, so that we can switch this lever to turn on the electricity in the cable to fry him. Now that's done, we can pick up the hand that he just spit out and be on our way to the next location. On our way back, we have some more small talk with Clarence.
It's not too late to just slam your head against the wall until you pass out, you know. It might be easier than carrying on. You know, the one thing that keeps me going is that when I finally work out how to end all this, you're coming with me. So, you're running around with a human body part in your backpack and I'm supposed to be the bad guy?
Our next stop is Computer Center. But before that, we get into the locker room with a framed note behind the glass. Breaking the glass with a brick will enable us to read it. And it's actually a really interesting text. Here is a summary of the history and foundation of the Archaic Group. The group was founded in 1519 by Francesco Melzi, who was the most trusted student of Leonardo da Vinci. The organization remained unnamed for centuries, and even now, Archaic is an official name used only internally. Main role of Archaic is to locate, understand and protect xeno evidence and lifeform around the world. As of today, under 30,000 members at 203 installations worldwide. This concept is really interesting and reminds me of what Remedy did in their game Control, similar to what SCP is. Organization that doesn't exist and try to control and protect people from some unidentifiable powers. It would be really cool to actually have more games with this theme, and as of now we are not really sure from my understanding if Amnesia has anything to do with Penumbra, or if the worlds are connected at all in any way. Anyway, now that we are in the Computer Central, where we have one of the really interesting puzzles to solve, and also a meetup with one of the scientists.
I remember why you're here. Dr. Swanson has filled me in. I recall every single syllable of our conversation. there was ever so slight an inflection in her tone that suggested she no longer trusted me. Why ever dinosaur extinction 65 million years ago would she think that? We share the same history. You and I are history. I recall the day of my birth, 18th of September, 1964, 3.46993412, recurring minutes past 9. I remember my mother looking surprised as I poked my head out into the world for the first time. You need a security registered palm. Something I can provide. You need it at the library. Something beyond my reach. When I became infected by those mindless zombies, I split off from the others and secured myself here. I cannot leave. Nonetheless, you will need a hand. I will not. Bring me a saw. I recall seeing one on my first day here, 3 years ago. Climate change of 10 degrees over the past 1 million years. Walk east and take the first door on your right.
Yeah, it certainly didn't sound sus at all.
There are others. He's like you, like us, yet he is not us. Why is he separate and yet we are bound together? Are we truly a we, or are we simply an I with two faces? But I am no monkey.
Well, giving him that saw will trigger sort of I guess, fighting puzzle. We just have to lure him inside of the server room, where we have the option to close the door from one side and lock him in. And now the server cards puzzle. It is actually a really fun puzzle to solve, not really hard if you read the instruction well enough, but it can take some time to complete. You need to insert 3 cards and install some programs into it, and each card has just a specific use. So you have to get just the programs that the card will be able to run. And after this, it's Clarence time!
You know, I think he's calmed down now. Perhaps all he wants is a hug. Why not let him out?
On the PC that we just fixed into the server cards puzzle, we can take a look at some documents. There we find out that the virus came from a Turngate tomb that was located underneath the facility in March 2000. When discovered, the first person to work on it was our father as a chief translator. He uncovered that this tomb was home to some form of ancient organism that may have been quarantined there, and that the name Turngate is derived from Inuit legend concerning evil spirits. In other notes, there are some more information about what was in the first game, about the discovery of Substance 63 and Artifact 66B, which is this. While we are going through the files, it's time for more Clarence.
As constantly entertaining as it might seem to have access to memories one has no recollection of receiving, it also places me in somewhat of a predicament. This saboteur, for some reason, he conjures in my mind the color red.
Progressing through the facility, we get another call from Dr. Swanson.
Christ, you look worse than the last time I saw you. Though maybe you're just at a higher resolution. Oh, damn it. Note to self, never insult your last hope of survival. I just wanted to give you a word of advice. Those creepy artifacts, we don't know how they work. Or even what they do, I suppose. I saw someone get too close to one once. You probably don't want to know. I'm sure you'll be fine. Probably. I hope. By the way, if you happen to find yourself in my neck of the woods, I'm kind of trapped. It's no big deal, really. Just throwing it out there.
Oh no, that's hardly true. They're really completely harmless. Go on, it's just like wrapping yourself up in a warm blanket.
And while going through some notes about cryostasis, it's another Clarence time!
Your mind space is muddled as a lime. See here, A is for alliteration, B is for bohemian, C is for carcinogenic. So many long words taking up space in my new home. Here, let me do a little spring cleaning. There, you didn't need the periodic table, did you?
After getting everything needed, we make our way into the next main location. But between that, it's a library. And there we find something that Philip was preparing from the start he went onto this adventure. A dead body of our father.
Oh my God, he's dead. Quick, if he hasn't started to smell, give him the kiss of life.
And a note where he wrote more observations about the virus. Discovering that all infected are working in sync towards some bigger goal. And also that they communicate telepathically. They can be seen as sort of a hive. Ants, perhaps? Or something similar. Howard also hypothesized that there is a hive mind, which has a chance of communicating with us. If someone was able to subdue the infection for long enough to make a contact with it. On another page, Howard communicated with the Turngate mind, and it's supposedly intelligent beyond our wildest imaginations. It told him everything that he needed to know, and that he cannot accept it. Now, there is no way back. We have to find the truth behind all this. What is this Turngate and the hive mind? We just have to go forward and find out. Going up the scaffolding, we have some more clearance time.
Holy hell! I mean, good. Yeah, more monkeys for the incinerator. Shut up. It really is quite amazing. You monkeys and your problem solving. How do you manage it with such small, singular brains? Isn't it terribly quiet, not hearing the thoughts of every one of your brothers?
And all the way up there, another call from Dr. Swanson.
You came. I guess I didn't really expect you to bother. My lab partner's such a pessimist. Was such a pessimist. It kind of rubbed off on me. He tried to make it through to me not too long ago. I guess he's a bit late for the party. You'll have to make a quick detour over the surface next, but be careful. If the cold doesn't kill you, well, let's just say I didn't pick the safest of locales for my last-ditch survival attempt. Okay, good news. Good news. Oh yeah, I think I've got a cure. Well, it's not really what you'd call a cure, but it should be enough to help you. I don't think I'm infected. I was careful, but I guess if you come rescue me and I'm looking at you like you're a roast chicken, I got it wrong. Sorry, that probably wasn't funny, was it? No, I suppose not. Well, I hope to see you soon.
Yeah, cures, rescues, saving the world, also cliché, also ridiculous. Do you really think you're doing the right thing? Your morality is just a lasting stain left behind by religion.
While we're on our way to the next bunker, guess what? More clearance time!
I'm not actually cold, you understand? I'm just trying to make you feel better. Very inefficient thing, your brain. Gives off lots of heat.
Once in a shelter, we have to find Doctor and figure out what to do next. And, well...
You know, you turning up here is probably the second best thing to happen to me since I've been down here. I'm reserving first place for when we get out. So, I'm not big-headed enough to think you came all the way here just to rescue me. I wasn't lying though, I think I've worked out how to disinfect you. But, you probably saw this coming. It's not quite as simple as all that. I had to engage the failsafe on the research rooms to seal myself in here, and that means we need a key card to get me out. One of the personnel, one of the infected ones, tried to get in with a card, but I don't know where it went. Look, I need you, and, well, if you do get me out, I'll give you the biggest hug of your life.
Christ! Go here, go there, fetch this, rub me a bath. Typical broad, atypical circumstances. You think fate has anything to do with this? Fate is merely the war cry of those too scared to think for themselves.
This next location is very important to understand what actually happened to the dogs in Overture, and how they got into the mines in the first place. There are rooms full of dog houses, but all empty, holes in fences. Venturing deeper into the location and...
Dark, isn't it? Echo! 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 Kinda empty. Now this is what it's like to be me, buried deep within the cavernous expanse you call a mind. You see, this is what puts me in such a bad mood. We spend all this time messing about with door codes, levers, human appendages, and it turns out at the blink of an eye, I can just block it all out. Whoosh! Gone. Just you and me on some kind of messed up holiday. You think I can conjure up some margaritas? No? Shall we get the hell out of here then?
As we walk, we stumble upon another room. But this time, it's full of dead dogs. Already turned. In the next location, a note from Garrett Quinn. This note is an assessment report of Chief Overseer Wilbur Frisk. I'm going to read out this note as a whole because for me this is probably one of the most important and interesting notes in the entire game that connects both games in a nice way.
Efficiency assessment as sanctioned by Elof Carpenter. Elevated. Subject: Wilbur Frisk, Chief Overseer, Shelter Research Station. Greenland Report, filed by Garrett Quinn. February 20th, 2000. My assessment of Frisk begins today. I have taken up station as his personal assistant, and my report will run for 6 months. Since taking over control of the facility from Bren Stafferson in 1980, Frisk has turned up precious few results, and I intend to discover why. March 5th, 2000. Having observed Frisk for 2 weeks, it seems my earlier assumptions may have been quite incorrect. He displays passion, efficiency, and above all, commitment to the cause. These qualities are ably demonstrated by his recent discovery of what is being called the Turngate Tomb at the primary excavation. He has, of course, called for a full-scale investigation. April 28th, 2000. A small-scale epidemic has resulted from the opening of the tomb. This will be a perfect opportunity to fully observe Frisk's ability to deal with high-pressure scenarios. May 24th, 2000. The epidemic has developed beyond all control. There have been many casualties, and it is hard not to highlight Wilbur as the primary cause. June 13th, 2000, Frisk has lost all control. While a number of survivors have fled, and others have holed themselves up in the mess hall, Frisk has chosen to lock himself away in the kennels with the remaining dogs for protection. I've had no choice but to follow him here in order to complete my report. September, I've lost sense of time, but Frisk seems to almost be enjoying himself. He's become very close to the canines. Every day he leaves the compound to forage for food in the main base, which he then feeds to the animals, despite a number of them being infected. October, Frisk has developed some strange symptoms. He's becoming sensitive to light. The slightest light scares him away. He's also displaying almost animalistic tendencies. He's been digging out some of the walls and hiding behind them. Further, I suspect he may be sneaking out of the facility at night, possibly even into the mines. Some of the dogs have turned up dead. Entry 8. I have been observing Frisk for some time now, and I believe I can conclude my report. Frisk displays outstanding efficiency, though I am now forced to call his judgment into doubt. Despite plenty of rations remaining, I believe he may have begun eating the canines. Entry 9. When I woke this morning, there was a corpse lying on the floor beside me. I broke out the flashlight, fearful Frisk may have been savaged or taken his own life. As I did so, I could not help but see, at the corner of my vision, Frisk fleeing back into the shadows. The dead man was Dr. Roberts, a scientist I was sure had escaped into the mines at the first signs of the epidemic. He had bite marks in his side and looked to have been dragged some way. In addition, his tongue was missing. I will continue to observe Frisk while taking additional security precautions.
So, not only that now we know that dogs went into the mines thanks to Frisk making a tunnel from here all the way to the mines, but also that the scientist that was eating spiders and cut off his own tongue was dragged away by Frisk, as we could hear. It's a really cool way to connect and uncover some leftover mysteries from the first game, close to the end of the second one. Now we need to turn off lights in this section of the facility, so we can get into another section. But before that, we need to take some of the heavy boxes and put them where the exit to all the tunnels are, so that the Frisk doesn't kill us in the darkness. Making our way into the room, we pick up a keycard, so that we can open a door where Dr. Swanson is hiding. And now it looks like that Dr. Swanson actually locked us in. And one of the infected is here as well. We can crank this wheel to lift the box and drop it into the infected. But at the end it was just Clarence playing with us. This whole time it was actually Dr. Swanson. And now she's dead.
Hey, good work, buddy. Give yourself a slap on the back with a crowbar, why don't you? Oh, one thing. Before you get too overwhelmed with glee, I know murder can be a lot of fun, but didn't you quite like that broad? Hey, I think that's a piece of her skull on your shoe. Wait, don't tell me you really thought... I thought you knew I was pulling your leg. Oh, my best laid plans and all that. This is just terrible. You silly Billy. Come on, monkey. Take a joke.
Picking up a key from her body, we can get into her office and check the computer in there. Here is a document from Dr. Swanson about the cure that she developed. Now we need to find all the chemicals and gain access to chemical labs. On our way to find all the ingredients we need, there is a little labyrinthish set of rooms that we need to go through, pressing levers to open doors while avoiding infected and cameras. Inside, a cool crane-like minigame that we have to use to pick up one of the ingredients. Now that we are inside the chemical labs, with all the ingredients we can create the cure and get rid of a Clarence for good.
Philip, let me live. You'll never do it. You don't have the balls. Go on, I dare you. You're some coward four-limbed freak. You barely evolved out of the swamp. You haven't got it in you.
But after we use the cure, which seemingly works, Clarence takes control of the infected body and tries to kill us.
What a pretty body. Mine, mine, mine.
As we escape the chemical labs, a bunch of infected arrives to destroy Clarence, as he now possesses a body and mind of his own rather than being part of the Turngate itself. After this experience, Philip has a conversation with Turngate, doing some spiritual tests in between the conversation, where the Turngate wants to test our ability to work as a team, to work as a one, to work as a whole. Upon successfully completing all the trials, the Turngate discloses its history. It is a timeless entity that arrived on Earth aeons ago, and in its earlier existence, it coexisted in harmony with the Inuit people. It achieved this harmony by employing infected hosts' bodies as a vessel through which it could transmit its ancient wisdom to humanity. Nonetheless, as the humanity continued to expand, the Turngate chose to retreat underground, distancing itself from the human world. This seclusion was a response to the changing landscape of the planet and the growth separation between itself and humanity. The intrusion of the archaic group disturbed Turngate's long-standing slumber and sought to exploit its powers. In self-defense, the Turngate engaged in a struggle against the archaic, resisting their attempts to harness its abilities. The Turngate says to Philip that while the individuals within humanity can exhibit intelligence and compassion, when viewed collectively, they tend to display selfishness, pettiness, and destructive behavior. Nonetheless, the Turngate recognized a distinct quality in Philip that sets him apart from the majority of humanity. It places itself at Philip's mercy, subjecting him to set mental trials and requesting him to transmit a message to someone on the surface that he trusts. This message entails the erasure of all records related to the archaic research facility, allowing the Turngate to find peace. This request mirrors one previously made to Philip's father Howard. However, Philip deviates from his father's compliance by choosing to investigate the situation rather than obeying the original directions. Initially, Philip appears to accept Turngate's plea and dispatches an email to a friend above the ground, detailing his experience underground. At this moment, we realize that this whole game was someone just reading this very email that Philip wrote down in a shelter. Yet, at the last moment, Philip reveals his desire to assert his free will instead of blindly adhering to the Turngate's wish. He declares a strong connection to Clarence than to the Turngate, and discloses the coordination of the mine, instructing his friends to come and eliminate the Turngate. In his last passing words, he utters, "Kill them all." After all this time, it'll end up the same way it started. Well, and that is the somewhat official end to the whole Penumbra series. I had to say that Black Plague was one of the best sequels to any game, at least from the games that I've played. What are some of your favorite sequels in gaming? Let me know. Even though Black Plague didn't have the best graphics, even for its time, or best voice acting, it's still to this day one of the best atmospheric horror experiences that you can have. I'd recommend this game to everyone who loves to get lost in the story and take your time playing through the game. Even though it's not really a long game, it'll take you somewhere between 3 to 5 hours max. It's still an excellent game. Especially when you think about that it was created by 3 people and other stuff like voice acting and some modeling was outsourced to other companies. Sadly, we don't have any official sequels to this series as of yet, and no, we are not going to talk about Requiem. I'm sorry. Apologies to that one fan over there. This video is pretty long as it is, but in the next video I'd like to take a look at fan mods for this series. We have like 3 main ones: Necrolog and its sequel, and Prisoner of Fate. While Necrolog is made in an HPL2 engine for Penumbra, Prisoner of Fate is made in HPL3 for Soma. I'm not sure about Prisoners of Fate, but in the Necrolog is basically a non-canonical sequel to Black Plague, and I'm actually pretty interested in what's going on in there and how the story will continue. Well, anyway, thank you for watching.